Welcome back to the Mechanics of Toxic Relationships. I'm Daniel Harper, and today we're talking about something people don't like saying out loud because it makes everyone shift awkwardly in their chair like they just sat on a socket set. Sex, intimacy, closeness, the bedroom, the part of the relationship that's supposed to feel safe, private, honest, and connected. But in a toxic relationship, that private space can turn into a control room, not a bedroom. A fucking control room, buttons, levers, punishments, rewards, silence, withholding, sudden affection when they're in trouble, coldness after they get what they want, and you're left lying there thinking, hang on, why do I feel more alone after being close than I did before? That's the mindfuck, because intimacy is supposed to connect two people. But with a narcissistic person, it can become just another tool in the shed. And not a good tool either. Not the trusty 10mm socket you can never find. More like a rusty screwdriver they keep jamming into your nervous system while telling you you're too sensitive. Now, before the internet's professional misreaders start warming up their keyboards, this isn't about saying all women do this. It's not about saying all difficult relationships are narcissistic. And it's not about shaming anyone's sex drive, boundaries, trauma, mood, or personal comfort. Consent matters. Boundaries matter. Nobody owes anyone sex, ever. But what we are talking about is when intimacy is deliberately used as leverage, when closeness becomes currency, when affection becomes a bribe, when rejection becomes punishment, when sex becomes less about love and more about power. That's not romance. That's emotional finance with no consumer protection. And mate, the interest rate is fucking brutal. So let's get under the bonnet. First thing, sex as reward and punishment. In a healthy relationship, intimacy is something shared. It's not a payment system. It's not a loyalty card. It's not buy 10 apologies and get one cuddle free. But with a toxic person, intimacy can become a vending machine. Insert obedience, receive affection, disagree, machine out of order, have a boundary, no stock available, ask a reasonable question, enjoy your complimentary cold shoulder, and 3 days of emotional frostbite. That's how the reward-punishment cycle works. When you behave the way they want, they might be warm, affectionate, interested. Suddenly you're the best thing since sliced bread and Bluetooth diagnostics. But the second you push back, question something, say no, or stop tap dancing around their ego, boom. The shutters come down. No affection, no warmth, no touch, no kindness. Just icy silence and a vibe cold enough to preserve meat. And because you're human, you start trying to get back into their good books. You apologize for things you didn't do. You soften opinions you had every right to have. You stop raising issues because you know the price, and that's the trap. They train you to associate your own honesty with rejection. Let that one sit for a second. They train you to believe that if you tell the truth, you'll lose closeness. So you start choosing connection over self-respect. And once that happens, they've got you by the emotional gearbox. This is not intimacy. This is management. You are not being loved. You are being handled. Like a difficult employee with performance targets and no union rep. And the worst part, you start thinking your worth depends on how well you serve them. If they're warm, you must have done well. If they're cold, you must have failed. That's not love. That's someone using affection like a dog treat. Sit, stay, shut up. Good boy. Here's a crumb. Fuck that. You are not a Labrador in a trauma bond. Second, the sexual explosion during love bombing. This one gets a lot of people because at the start it feels unreal. The intensity, the chemistry, the obsession, the way they seem to want you constantly. It feels like fate kicked the door open, wearing lingerie and carrying a playlist. You think, finally, someone who matches me, someone who wants me, someone who makes me feel alive again. And yeah, sometimes strong attraction is real. Sometimes people genuinely click. But in narcissistic dynamics, the early sexual intensity can be part of the bait. It's not always connection. Sometimes it's capture. They study you, what you like, what you respond to. What makes you feel wanted? What makes you feel powerful? What makes you feel chosen? then they become that. Not because it's who they are, because it's what works. It's mirroring with mood lighting. They don't just seduce your body, they seduce your sense of being understood. And that's the dangerous part, because once your brain connects them with pleasure, validation, relief, and fantasy, logic starts running on 2 cylinders and a prayer. You see red flags, but your nervous system says, yeah, but remember last night? Mate, that's how the trap locks. Your body becomes a witness for the defender. Every time your gut says something is wrong, your craving says maybe it's not that bad. And this is where the early version of them becomes the ghost you chase for the rest of the relationship. The affectionate version, the wild version, the version that made you feel like a king. But here's the bastard truth. Sometimes the person you miss was not the real person. They were the demo model, the shiny showroom version, fresh polish, perfect lighting, engine bay cleaned, no mention of the oil leak, the gearbox shutter, or the fact the thing throws a check engine light every time life gets stressful. You fell in love with the test drive, then bought the lemon, and now you're stuck in the driveway saying, but it drove beautifully at the start. Yeah, that's how scams work. They don't show you the blown head gasket on day one. Third, coldness after intimacy. This one messes with your head badly because healthy intimacy usually has some warmth after it, a cuddle, a laugh, a soft moment, a sense of we're close. But with a narcissistic person, sometimes the second it's over, they emotionally vanish, roll over, grab the phone, go cold, start a stupid argument, act irritated by your affection, treat your tenderness like you've just asked them to help move house, and you're lying there thinking, what the fuck just happened? 5 minutes ago you were wanted, now you feel like a used napkin. That sudden drop is brutal because it tells your nervous system something is wrong, but your brain can't make sense of it. You were physically close, but emotionally they weren't there. They were performing it, they were taking validation, they were feeding the ego, they were checking that they still had access to you. Then once the ego got its little biscuit, the transaction was complete. Back to cold, back to distance, back to making you feel needy for wanting basic human warmth. And this is where intimacy becomes damaging because you start associating closeness with rejection. You start dreading the drop after. You know the cold shoulder is coming. You can feel the emotional temperature fall, like someone opened a freezer door in the middle of your chest. That's not connection, that's a hit and run with candles. And then they'll make you feel pathetic for noticing. What's wrong with you? Why are you being weird? Why do you need so much reassurance? Because, mate, your nervous system just got invited in and kicked out in the same breath. That would rattle anyone. Fourth, the punishment when you say no. Now this one needs to be said clearly. Nobody owes anyone intimacy. Man or woman, partner or not, marriage or not, relationship or not. No means no. Tired means tired. Not in the mood means not in the mood. A normal partner can feel disappointed and still respect you. A toxic partner treats you no like you just spat in the face of their ego. Suddenly it's war. They sulk, they rage, they cry, they accuse, they attack your masculinity, they bring up old shit from 17 arguments ago. They act like your boundary is abuse. And now you're not just saying no to sex, you're apparently saying no to them as a human being, their childhood wounds, their entire womanhood, and possibly the moon. It becomes a full bloody courtroom drama because you were tired after work. This is where coercion creeps in, not always with force. Sometimes with consequences. You learn that saying no costs too much, so eventually you say yes just to avoid the fallout. That is not desire, that is surrender. And there's a massive difference. If the only reason you're agreeing is because the alternative is emotional punishment, that is not intimacy, that's compliance wearing deodorant, and it destroys attraction, because nothing kills desire faster than obligation. Once your body starts associating sex with keeping the peace, the spark dies. It doesn't die because you're broken. It dies because your nervous system has started reading intimacy as a threat assessment, not passion, threat assessment. Do I want this? Or am I just trying to stop a 3-day sulk? Do I feel connected? Or am I paying the emotional invoice? That's a horrible place to live. And if someone needs you to ignore your own body to protect their ego, that's not love, that's ownership. Fifth, using sex as a gaslighting tool. This one is sneaky as hell. You catch them lying, you bring up disrespect, you try to talk about something serious, and suddenly out comes the affection, the charm, the softness, the seduction, not because the issue is resolved, because they want to bury it. It's not intimacy, it's a smoke bomb. Instead of accountability, they offer chemistry. Instead of repair, they offer distraction. Instead of saying, I hurt you and I need to own that, they try to make your body forget what your brain knows, and because you're human, it can work. For a moment, the tension drops, the fight pauses, the body gets confused, the nervous system grabs the relief like a drowning man grabbing a pool noodle. Then the next day you try to bring the issue back up, and they act shocked. Why are you starting again? I thought we were good. We were so close last night. Why do you always ruin things? There it is, the reset button. They use intimacy to wipe the hard drive, except nothing was fixed. No apology, no truth, no change, just the sexual control Alt-Delete. And now you feel like the crazy one for still caring about the original issue? That's the gaslight. They make closeness look like resolution, but real intimacy does not replace accountability, it follows it. Remember that. Real intimacy comes after repair, not instead of repair. If someone only becomes affectionate when they're in trouble, that's not love. That's a legal defense strategy with eye contact. Sixth, treating you like a decorative object. This one is lonely, really lonely, because you can be physically close to someone and still feel unseen. With a narcissistic person, intimacy can feel like you're just a prop in their little theater production. They're not connecting with you, they're watching themselves through your reaction. Do you want them enough? Are you impressed enough? Are you validating them enough? Are you playing your role correctly? You stop feeling like a partner. You start feeling like a mirror with a pulse. And if you don't reflect back the image they want, they get bored, annoyed, offended, or cold. Because the point was never mutual connection, the point was ego fuel. You're there to confirm their desirability, their power, their specialness, their control. And once they've taken that from you, your inner world becomes irrelevant. Your feelings, background noise, your needs, inconvenient, your emotional experience, not on the agenda. It's like being used as a diagnostic scanner by someone who only cares whether the screen says they're perfect. They plug into you, pull the validation codes, then throw you back in the toolbox. And after enough of that, you feel hollow, because there was no exchange, no meeting, no emotional presence, just performance. And that hollowness is your body telling the truth. You weren't loved there, you were used there. That doesn't mean you're weak. It means something sacred was turned into a transaction, and your system noticed. Seventh, the fake makeup. This is when intimacy is used to avoid consequences. You have a fight, they were cruel, they crossed a line, and they said something disgusting, they lied, they disappeared, they flirted with someone, they humiliated you, and instead of a mature conversation, you get the sexy apology. No ownership, no actual accountability, just affection wrapped around a grenade, and because you want peace, you accept it. You tell yourself, maybe this means they care, maybe this is their way of reconnecting, maybe we're okay now. No. Sometimes it means they found the fastest way to shut the case without a hearing. That is not repair. That's emotional duct tape. And duct tape is useful in a workshop, but it should not be the foundation of your relationship. You can't keep taping over cracks in the engine block and acting surprised when coolant pisses everywhere on the freeway. Problems need repair, not distraction, and not sex, not gifts, not jokes, not a sudden soft voice after 3 hours of psychological cage fighting. Actual repair, that means truth, responsibility, change behavior. Without that, you're not making up, you're restarting the cycle. Eighth, the destruction of your desire. This is one people don't talk about enough. When intimacy becomes loaded with punishment, pressure, confusion, obligation, and emotional aftermath, your desire can start shutting down. And then you blame yourself. What's wrong with me? Why don't I want them anymore? Why do I feel anxious instead of excited? Why does my body tense up? Because your body is not stupid. Your mind might still be doing gymnastics for the trauma bond, but your body is already reading the workshop manual. It remembers. It remembers the coldness after, the punishment for saying no, the arguments, the guilt. The way affection was used to dodge truth, the way your needs didn't matter, the way you felt alone in the most intimate moments. So your desire doesn't disappear because you're defective. It disappears because your nervous system has filed intimacy under unsafe. And that is not a character flaw. That is a warning light. Stop smashing the warning light and calling the car fixed. Listen to it. Something in you knows this is not love. Something in you knows this is not safety. Something in you knows being wanted is not the same as being valued. Ninth, the emotional bill after intimacy. Sometimes with toxic people, there's always a bill. You get affection, but later it costs you. They use it as leverage. After everything I do for you, after how close we were, after last night, and suddenly intimacy becomes debt, something you owe repayment on. You're expected to be more forgiving, more compliant, less questioning, more available, because they gave you closeness. That is not closeness. That's a loan shark in lingerie. Healthy intimacy does not come with hidden fees. It does not come with emotional interest. It does not mean you lose the right to bring up problems. It does not mean your boundaries expire. It does not mean their bad behavior gets deleted. If someone gives affection only to later use it as evidence that you owe them silence, they weren't loving you. They were investing in control. 10th, the final mindfuck. You start thinking this is normal. That's the scary part. After long enough, chaos becomes your baseline. You stop expecting warmth. You stop expecting mutual care. You stop expecting safety. You start thinking intimacy is supposed to feel confusing. You start thinking love always comes with punishment. You start thinking sex always comes with pressure. You start thinking closeness always ends in loneliness. And then when someone healthy comes along, they feel boring because they don't activate the circus. No hot-cold roller coaster, no emotional landmines, no guessing game, no dramatic reunion after a pointless fight, just consistency. And your trauma-trained brain might go, where's the spark? Mate, that spark was your nervous system catching fire, not love. Fire? Big difference. A healthy relationship will not always feel like a movie. Sometimes it feels calm, safe, predictable, a bit ordinary. And if you've been living inside a narcissistic emotional demolition derby, ordinary can feel weird at first. But ordinary is where your nervous system heals. Peace might feel unfamiliar. That doesn't mean it's wrong. It means you've been conditioned to mistake chaos for passion. So where does this leave you? First, stop ignoring the pattern. If intimacy only appears when they want control, notice that. If affection disappears when you have boundaries, notice that. If they use closeness to avoid accountability, notice that. If you feel lonelier after being with them, notice that. If your no causes punishment, notice that. Your body has been taking notes the whole time. Second, stop letting chemistry override character. I know. The chemistry can be powerful. It can feel like your brain has been hijacked by a horny raccoon with abandonment issues. But chemistry without character is just a pretty fire hazard. Attraction is not proof of fucking safety. Passion is not proof of love. Good sex is not proof of goodness. You can have insane chemistry with someone who is absolutely terrible for your mental health. That's not romance. That's a biochemical scam with nice lighting. Third, understand that real intimacy has accountability. Real intimacy does not punish you for having boundaries. It does not disappear when you speak honestly. It does not use your body to silence your mind. It does not make you feel like a prop. It does not turn your no into a crime scene. Real intimacy says, you are safe here. Not just when you please me, not just when you obey me, not just when you validate me. Safe as a person with needs, with limits, with a voice, with a body that belongs to you. Fourth, get your dignity back. Not by becoming bitter, not by hating everyone, not by pretending you don't care, but by refusing to keep confusing being used with being loved. That's the shift. You stop asking why won't they choose me properly, and start asking why am I trying to be chosen by someone who keeps making me feel disposable. You stop asking how do I get the early version back, and start asking why did the early version vanish once they had control. You stop asking am I enough, and start asking, why does this relationship require me to feel like I'm not? That's clarity. And clarity is a bastard at first. It hurts, but it's clean pain, not the dirty pain of confusion. Clean pain heals, dirty pain loops. And finally, remember this. Your desire is not a bargaining chip. Your body is not an apology machine. Your affection is not a currency they get to spend. Your intimacy is not a loyalty test. And your heart is not a vending machine for someone else's ego. You are allowed to want connection that doesn't come with a trapdoor. You are allowed to want affection that doesn't vanish when you speak up. You are allowed to want closeness that feels safe after, not just intense during. You are allowed to say no without being punished. You are allowed to say yes without feeling used. You are allowed to be a whole person in the most private parts of your life. Because when intimacy becomes a weapon, love becomes a workshop accident. And the first step is pulling your hand out of the gears, not because you failed, because you finally realized the machine was never built to protect you. This has been The Mechanics of Toxic Relationships. I'm Daniel Harper. And remember this, if someone only wants your body when it feeds their ego and only wants your silence when you ask for respect, you're not in a relationship. You're in a hostage situation with mood lighting. Get your keys, get your dignity, and get the fuck out of the control room. Hope you enjoyed today's episode. Until next time, take care of yourself.